Do you know your business client's love language? This is the IssuesWatch podcast. Hi, I'm Don Meyer, Chief Growth Officer at the New Jersey Society of CPAs, and welcome to the IssuesWatch podcast. Between rising client demands, tight deadlines, and growing compliance responsibilities, CPAs in public practice are under more pressure than ever to do more with less. Here with me to help us unpack how CPAs can become more efficient without losing the personal touch is Ilya Radzinsky, Chief Product Officer and co-founder of TaxDome. Welcome, Ilya.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. All right, so let's start with the biggest shift we've seen in recent years, how clients now expect to interact with their accountants. It's not just about accuracy anymore, it's about the experience, right?
So it's a great question. And client experience is on everybody's mind. And the reality is that your clients are no longer comparing you to accounting firms down the street. They are comparing you to Amazon, to Robinhood, to Uber, right? These are consumer-facing apps that they use every single day. And those apps give them a certain expectation of what they expect from every provider, even SMBs like you guys are, right? So they're used to getting real-time updates. They're used to having everything feel really smoothly, and it really raises the bar of what people have. And accounting firms are really starting to come around to how important that is, because we all live in our own world from our own business, right? But when you put yourself in the shoes of your client, then you kind of see things a different way. So at TaxDome we've built the client experience for every accounting firm to match what people really expect. Right. So our client portal and our mobile app are consistently in the top 100 of the iOS App Store. So these are all apps in the iOS store. So next to TaxDome is JP Morgan Chase, Robinhood, and other apps like that. And the reason we're able to do that is because everything is focused around the customer experience. And if the customer has a great experience, they're going to value the services that you deliver more, right? Because if we're honest about it, your clients oftentimes don't know the quality of the work that you're doing, right? They get a tax return or prepared financial statement, and they're not accountants. So to them, they just see it as, okay, that works. But if it's centered around a really great customer experience, that increases the likelihood that they value and that they believe that what you've done for them is really high quality as well.
Right. And actually, we can sympathize with that here at the NJCPA. Because as a membership organization, we've kind of gone through that similar experience where the expectations are different because everybody has a membership model now. So you go to Costco or Netflix or things like that. So we kind of understand that idea of the customer expectations have changed over the years. So we can sympathize certainly with our members and the firms that we work with. As I was saying, you mentioned how expectations vary. That actually sets up perfectly for something I know you talk a lot about, and that's how firms can tailor service based on what different clients want. You've got this really interesting concept called the love languages of service businesses. Can you explain that?
Definitely. So we're all familiar with love languages in relationships, right? Some people value time spent together. Some people value affirmations. And the key message behind it is they vary. Right. And the goal, of relationships experts are to identify what are the love languages of your partners and other people in your life that you're interacting with. And the same exact thing goes for a service business, right? Because at the end of the day, you accountants are interacting with other people on the other side. And for them to assess whether or not they're having a good experience will depend on what they believe is a good experience. So most industry reports, they ask service providers, what do you think your clients want? And I just think that's, that doesn't tell you the true story, right? You're asking the service provider what they think that the end user wants. So at TaxDome, we did something different. We commissioned a report where we surveyed over 1,000 taxpayers in the U.S. So not the accountants the taxpayers. So people that have hired accountants, people that have made a decision to pay someone for this service. And then we've asked them, we ask them, what do you value? What are the decision makers for you to choose an accountant? How do you see whether or not you have a good experience with an accountant? And that report has given us a tremendous amount of insights that have, that have allowed us to build a platform that supports this. Because what we found in terms of the love languages is that people really separate into two different camps. So there are some clients, and you guys all know this, that want to be, they're control freaks, right? They're calling you nonstop. They want to know exactly what's going on. And then you have another kind, which are totally hands off. They want to know nothing. They just want to know when it's done, and they don't want to deal with it. And your goal as a service provider can be to identify what a client wants and ideally provide them the service that they're going for. So you can have within your firm two completely different flows depending on what a client wants. And by doing so, you'd be delivering the service that each of them wants. Because if you have just one process for all of them, by definition, again, according to the report that we did, roughly half of them will feel that they didn't get what they wanted. Right. And I think that that's really fascinating in terms of identifying what your clients want and meet them there. So within that study, we found something also really interesting is that every firm really wants to raise prices, right? Every firm wants to generate more profit. Every firm wants to be, more profitable. And how do you do that? People come up with different strategies, but we saw a great low-hanging fruit, again, directly from what the clients say. So about 1 in 5 clients said they would pay up to 50% more for faster service. Isn't that fascinating? So if you can charge 50% more from 20% of your clients, you guys are accountants, you can do the math. That'll have a really big impact on your bottom line. And what your goal is to identify who those clients are, right? Because there are other clients that might not care as much. So this is kind of where what we recommend to do is to have a really good onboarding process where you meet with the client and you identify how can we best serve you? What would you prefer? And by having a tailored standardized process around that, whether or not it's one partner or an admin or someone else in your firm as you scale doing this, you'd be able to, properly assign your clients in your CRM and tag them the right way, and then ideally be able to get more, more revenue from those that are willing to pay for it and provide a great value to everybody because you're delivering the service that they want.
Just to go back to the love languages for a moment. So I confess I did not know what a love language was until I started watching Guilty Pleasure, Love Island. So for those viewers or listeners who may not kind of like, or just maybe learning the concept of a love language or a business love language, how would you suggest someone who's maybe not familiar with that terminology, how would you suggest they sort of learn what their customer or their client's love language is, or how would they go about kind of figuring out how to work within that dynamic?
The basic concept of a love language is that people feel valued in different ways, right? So again, where this stems from is that some people want words of affirmation. Some people love to hear, I love you. Other people want to spend lots of quality time with you. Other people value gifts, and people go into different camps. So the whole idea of love languages is that by talking to your partner or to your family member or to whomever, you can identify how you can best connect with them there. So the same idea here goes for your clients, and that you can't guess whether your client wants constant updates or whether or not they just want to be hands off. You can't guess that. So what you want to do is you want to create an onboarding process is that when you're talking to a client, introducing them to your services, these would be some of the questions that you can ask. And you can say, hey, do you want constant updates? We can do that for you. And by using a system like TaxDome, you can set this up where you're not doing this manually, but you can have automated updates every step of the way. A big area of concern for most clients is they're just, again, for those of the control freaks especially, is that they don't know what's going on, right? They've given you their documents and they're waiting for something. Now, accountants, especially in a seasonal business, oftentimes get backed up. Right? It's just the nature of our world that we live in. And when that happens, you're not able to provide manually these updates for your clients of like what's going on. Because within your firm, you could be working on something, right? It can go from, an admin to a preparer to a reviewer. And each of those steps your client doesn't know what's going on, right? If it's just a black box. They just know they're waiting for you to do something. So, for example, what you can do for those that want those constant updates is you can have automations that send them continual updates, saying, "Hey, your return is in review. You should expect to hear from us within 7 days. Don't reach out to us," and have automated updates every step of the way. And again, from that same client research report, I believe, and I don't remember the number offhand, but it was roughly 80% valued having updates of their e-filing status, and specifically for tax. And I find this fascinating because how many of you, how many of you listeners actually send your client an update once you've e-filed them? Most people, when we talk to them, once you get the e-signature authorization, that really is the end of it. But simply adding in another automation at the end, once you've done the e-filing, say, "Hey, we've completed your e-file. See you next year." 84, I believe, is the percent of people valued that connection, that closing the loop. So by simply adding that, you can increase the value to your clients. So your goal here again would be to identify, if you want to systematize this, identify what your clients want, and then create processes around them. So the ones that want constant updates, you can do that. The ones that want to be hands off, you can do that. Identify, for example, would you how much would you pay for a faster service? Are you interested in that? Because then we can put you in we can put you in the front of the line. We have a special package for that. So a lot of people recommend to do different packages. Again, it's a way to segment your client base to try to create more value from the same list of clients. But unless you talk to your clients and unless you identify those desires, you don't know who wants what. And that is the goal of, I think, of a good onboarding process within a firm.
We've talked a lot about efficiency and certainly using technology, including AI, to be more efficient. How do firms, I've made the argument, as we've talked about some of the pipeline challenges the profession has, I've made the argument that AI won't necessarily replace accountants or CPAs because I believe that accounting is very much a people business, despite maybe the reputation it has. So how do firms walk that line between being efficient and still delivering high touch service that I think a lot of clients still want?
I think that is a fantastic question. And I think it will go into two routes here, right? So one of them I will separate about AI and the vision there. And then the other one is how do you combine automation with empathy, right? So meaning automation that doesn't feel robotic to your end client. So let's tackle the first one first of the automation with empathy. So if you if we talk again about what we just talked about with the providing the service that clients want, your client wants you to especially those that want updates, they want you on the phone, they want you every day. They want personalized service from the partner. That's not scalable, right? You can't do that. So the question is, how can you build processes and systems that feel natural to the client, feel like it adds value to them, but at the same time isn't you doing it manually? It's a system doing it. So that's kind of the fine line between those two. And I think a lot of times when people hear the word automation, they think that it will decrease the client experience. They think that, oh, my clients don't want this, a robot talking to them. They want me. But what your client really wants is they want control and feeling of everything is okay. That's what they actually want. And at the same time, they want you to deliver, to talk to them and add value. So the more you can automate the actual admin part of saying, hey, here's the status update. So for example, using TaxDome, your client would always know the status of their work. Now, and you can customize what they see. So just like if I log into my DoorDash app or anything like that, I can always see the status of my order. I don't have to reach out to them. And by controlling the message that you send there, you're providing them with, again, the expectation that they have from modern apps. It doesn't equate you to an Uber driver or to something like that. I think that's something people can mistake. What it does is it provides them the visibility and control into your internal processes. That's what it's doing. And by doing that, you're removing the phone call that comes to your team. You're removing the time that somebody on your team that you're either paying for or doing yourself has to spend answering questions that don't deliver value. You're really just pushing information from one person to another. So the more that can be systematized and the more that can be done in a way of what they expect, then you can actually free up your team to deliver value, right? You can spend more time in saying, hey, actually, instead of 20 minutes on the phone to go over the status or to answer those questions and to look something up, we're going to have a 20-minute phone call at the end of the process to show you what we've done, to show you, to put you in a tax planning, we're going to have a tax planning call with you, or we're going to have a strategy call where you can actually add value to them, where, charge them more money for, offer them another service, as opposed to, the admin work that every, service business gets bogged down to. So I think that's kind of really the importance of, you can have an automation based process that is also, that is client first. So it gives them what they're looking for, and it doesn't devalue you. It actually frees you and your team up to focus on the value add work that they really, that they want from you and why they hired you in the first place.
So I know you touch on AI in your upcoming annual letter. Tell us how you see AI reshaping the accounting profession and what firm leaders should be thinking about now.
So I think this is obviously on the mind of everybody in every business, and specifically within accounting, it's going to have a tremendous shift. We all know this, but I think the key thing that, again, we touch upon in our upcoming annual letter, is that's going to come out in July, is that AI isn't coming for your job, but it's coming for, your process, and it's really redefining who does what, and that accountants that are leveraging AI, and AI is kind of a, the reason we talked about automation before, a lot of people use AI and automation interspersed, right? There's just a machine that is helping to do the job for somebody. And it either augments your work or it replaces your work. And what it, we're confident that it's going to fundamentally reshape accounting. And the way that I see it is that, it's really going to make firms far more efficient than it used to, right? So we expect there to be tremendous productivity gains within the accounting world, and that right now there's a lack of people, right? It's very hard to hire, and you guys talk about how hard it is to hire. But once AI and automation can fill in some of those gaps, then accountants can actually take on much more work. So, for example, the traditional org charts have a triangle, right? You've got someone at the top, and then you've got layers of people. The way we think it's going to happen is it's going to turn into what we call little pods, right? So you might have a partner, a junior, and then AI that helps kind of do additional work. And then you have a bunch of those little pods. And what we think is going to happen is that if you have a traditional, CAS model, right? In a traditional CAS model, you roughly have a 10-to-1 ratio of clients to staff, right? And then you can, other people coach you on trying to increase that from 10 to 20 perhaps. And if you have really good processes, you can do it. You can do that. And then you have a ceiling of roughly 20-to-1. So we believe that accounting is a people relationship, and that I don't think that people want to talk to a robot. They want to talk to a person, but that person that is able to be really efficient because they have, machines helping them work. And it's no different than when, Excel came out or something else. It's the same idea. You have to adopt these things, but you cannot lose sight of the client experience and what they're really hiring you for. Accountants are hired for peace of mind, then compliance, but peace of mind first and foremost. And do I think at some point we're going to get to a point when, accountants are no longer here? I think that day is not anywhere close, and we're nowhere, that's a very, very far away. And whether that'll happen, I don't know. But I can promise you that accountants who are not leveraging modern technology will struggle. So if you go back to that, the ratio of clients to staff, what I think is going to happen is the firms that are able to be, leverage technology, what they're going to be able to do is they're going to be faced with a choice. Do I fire all these people and then just have a higher margin, one person business? I don't think that's going to happen. And the reason for that is nobody wants to buy that business, right? People want to, if you're going to try to sell it one day, you're going to have an out. They want to buy an operation. They want to be able to buy something that's scalable, that's there. And if it's you and, a bunch of agents that you see all over LinkedIn, I don't think that's as attractive an asset as 10 people, but agents helping them that used to be, the work of 30 staff. So I think that firms are going to become much more efficient. I think the ratios of clients to staff are going to change dramatically. And the firms that are become much more efficient will face a choice of, do I want to just work a lot less? Or do I want to take on a lot more clients with the same exact amount of work that we used to do, right? Because we've got automation and machines that help us to do that. And everyone's going to make the choice that makes most sense for them. But I think many, many people will actually hire more and will try to scale their teams, but in a very different manner than what they used to, given the technological capabilities that exist today and are only going to continue to appear. But my recommendation to everybody is continue to double down on the relationships that you have, because that is why you're being hired. Do not fear technology that helps augment processes, but do not lose sight of the client experience. And that is the main thing that is so key, because you want to be building a process for, scalability for the future. And you want to have a great business that you enjoy working in, that your clients value, and a brand, and perhaps something that is attractive also to potential buyers down the line.
I think maintaining that personal touch, I think, is a great point. So I think a lot of our listeners might want to read your annual letter after listening to this podcast. So where would they be able to find that once it's live?
Sure. So the annual letter will be on taxdome.com, DOME. And we're a private company, but we've actually started to write annual letters. We were inspired very much by Warren Buffett and by Stripe, both two companies that both Berkshire Hathaway and Stripe, two companies that we very much look up to for different reasons. But they've been writing annual letters for many years. So this is going to be our second annual letter. You can read our first from last year, but it really gives you an insight into where we view accounting is going, a view into our team, a view into kind of our vision and what we're doing, and we're excited to share that with the community.
All right, terrific. Yeah, I'll definitely be looking for it. I appreciate it. You could do worse than follow the lead of Warren Buffett. Ilya, thanks again for joining us today. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening or watching. For more guidance on efficient firm management, visit njcpa.org/hub/firm management.